Hey y'all, what's up? It is Roy here with Roy's Randomness, and just had some thoughts I wanted to share real quick. I've been reading through Psalms. I've also been reading alternately with David and the story of David and Goliath. Obviously, everybody knows that story has been, known from the earliest of Sunday schools. You always know the story of David and Goliath. But I really wanted to dig into it and look at it and read it some more and just read it again. Sometimes it's really cool what you can gather out of things as you put a new read into them. What I thought was really, really interesting that I wanted to share, like I said, about the story of David and Goliath. And so as you get into it, as you start digging through, you see that, David's father sends him down and says, hey, I want you to go check on your brothers. I want you to go see how your brothers are doing in the war. They're down in the pits. They're down in the trenches. Take this food to them. Take this, uplift them a little bit, encourage them, strengthen them, and all that. So he goes down, he makes his way down there, and there they are. There's the army. They're all in the trenches, and he hears Goliath come out, and he hears Goliath come out and cry out, send somebody to face me. Who's gonna be man enough to face me? And he rah 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 rah. Nobody ever goes up. And David looks at this, and and it tells us that his brothers knew how David was, and he would want to try to do something, so they're discouraging him, and you need to leave. What are you doing here? And I thought it was really interesting that he goes down to encourage his brothers, to give them food, to something to sustain them. And instead of being thankful for that, they decide to discourage David and push him away, almost per se, because of what they thought he might do because of this giant. But I tell you, David hears this giant, and he looks around and he sees this entire army afraid to go forward and face the Philistines and face this Philistine giant named Goliath. And he looks around and he's like, we have the power of God. We have the strength of God. We have the power of God. Why are we sitting here and letting this man just yell at us and curse us and make fun of us and our God? Why is nobody doing anything? And David says, hey, let me go face him. And it tells us, Saul, they initially tell, no, you can't go. And David says, no, by the power of God, we can defeat this giant. Let me go. So finally, after some prodding, they, okay, Saul, here's a sword, here's this, here's that. And David says, I appreciate these things, but I'm not tried with these things. I've not proven with these things. I can't use this sword and this shield. I can't use this armor to defeat this giant. And so he takes it off of him, and he says, I'm going to go forward and face this giant. And it says he stops in the brook and picks up 5 smooth stones. He puts them in his shepherd's pouch, and he marches forward. And he goes up and with this boldness, and he walks up and says, Goliath, I'm here to face you. And what does Goliath do? Goliath begins to mock him. Goliath begins to curse him. He begins to make fun of the armies. And you send this little twerp, you send this little guy to face me. And it says that he cussed him and he made fun of him and mocked him. And there stood David taking all of that, standing in the face of this giant. Something else? Goliath, as big and bad as he was, he still had to have somebody carry his shield for him. It says he had a shield carrier in front of him. So even Goliath is big and bad. I'm this monster guy, and none of y'all can defeat me. Couldn't even carry his own shield. This should have told you something, but anyway. So David goes forward, and it says that he approaches, and here comes the Philistine giant coming at him, and David takes that stone out, and he flings that stone. It says that stone sunk in his head. The giant fell on his face. But here's what happens next that I think people maybe don't think about and don't realize. There was other Philistine giants there. There was other part of his army was there. At any point, they could have said, oh no, Goliath is down. We've got one guy here. The army's way back down there behind the brook, down the hill. Let's get him. He just took out Goliath. Let's go forward. He can't beat all of us. Let's go forward. And I believe he picked up 5 stones for a reason. I believe he picked up those 5 stones knowing that if Goliath went down, there was 4 more he had, and he would march forward with those 4 and take out the next one and take out the next one, take out the next one, gather his stones as he went and kept going. I believe there was a reason for that, but what does it say that happened? It says David ran forward. He climbed on the giant. Little old David climbed on the giant, used the giant's own sword to take his head. And what does it say happened? It says the Philistine army began to flee. Instead of coming up on this man of God, coming up on this person that had this power of God with him, they turned and they fled. This Philistine giant army turned and fled. Well, of course, then you see him flee, and all of a sudden, here comes all your help, right? Here comes the armies behind David coming forward. Let's go get them. We're chasing them down. But here's some things I want to point out in this. I want to point out a couple of things in this, and I'll be done. But I want to point out one. They offered David all of this armor and this weaponry and everything he would need to kill somebody, right? He was all here. Here's this. Take this when you go into your battle. And I want to equate this into our spiritual life a little bit. We have the tools. We've been given the tools with our Bible and the Word, and with the helmet and the sword and the shield. We have that, and we go forward to face Satan. We go forward to face the wiles of this world and the wiles of the devil. But you don't have to have all of that to defeat Satan's temptations and Satan's wiles. All you have to do is have the faith in God, knowing that God is on your side. Have that faith of a mustard seed to go forward and face Satan. David went forward without all of that, even though it was there for him. He could have taken it and used it, stumbled his way through it, pulling the sword out, using the shield. He could have done that. We can do that with our Bible. We can pull our Bible out and, let's flip through and let me show you this scripture in Romans, and let me show you this in John, and let me show you this in Luke. And we could do that, but it could be as simple as, hey, devil, I've got Jesus. I've got the power of Christ in me. The same power that rose him from the grave, the same power that called Lazarus up, the same power that healed the blind, cleansed the lepers, made the lame walk, the same power that did all of those things I have inside of me. I don't need these weapons. They're hidden in my heart. They're here, but I'm going to come at you because I have the faith in God and the power of him to know that I can defeat you. And I don't have to use every weapon in my arsenal. David didn't have to use every weapon in his arsenal. He had faith, and he went forward with 5 little stones. And then he went forward knowing we're told that the wicked. I'm getting it mixed up now. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous walk bold as a lion. David walked bold as a lion, ran to that giant and climbed on top of him. And what did the wicked do? The wicked fled. The wicked fled from one young boy with 4 stones left in his shepherd's pouch and a sword of a giant that he could probably barely lift. That thing had to weigh 100 pounds. And they fled from him. They didn't flee from the army. They fled from David because he had the power of God on him. But he went forward with that boldness. We as Christians should, regardless of our weaponry, know that we're prepared, know that we have God behind us, and that's what matters. David had the army behind him. We've got Christ behind us. And that alone should be enough to allow us to walk as bold as a lion, take down our temptations, take down Satan and how he comes at us, and our trials and our tribulations, and know that we have the power of the Almighty Christ. And go forward, face our giant, face our Goliath, and say, hey, we're here. We've got Jesus. He's on my side. You're not going to defeat me. We might have a battle. We might get down. It might be tough, but we have Jesus. And it says when we go forward and when he needs us, he is there. When we need him, he is there. He is always there to lift us up and strengthen us and encourage us, because the God of that army and the God that did all those things that I mentioned earlier is with us every second of every day as a Christian people. And we should approach our battles with Satan and our battles with this world with that boldness, that power, and that strength of Jesus Christ, because he's on our side, not the devil's. The wicked will flee. If you approach the devil and say, hey, you're not going to do this to me, you're not going to win this battle, you're not going to tempt me, just like you couldn't tempt Jesus on the mount, you're not going to tempt me, you need to go because I've got Jesus behind me. And if you're not scared enough of me, I guarantee you, I know you're scared of him, because he done threw you down once and he's going to do it again. We should have that boldness as David to go forward, climb on that giant, take its head, walk through the town with that giant's head. And you know what? When you do that, when you get that strength, when you get that courage to do that and you win that battle, guess what's going to happen? The same thing that happened in that story. Saul became jealous of David. Saul became angry with David because of what he did. You're going to have people who are your friends, who are your brethren, who love you, that are going to feel the same way. They're going to be like, oh, well, he went and did this. Now you're making me look bad as a Christian because I didn't do that. I wasn't bold enough to go forward. I didn't have enough faith. Now you're Mr. Holy. Oh, you got all this strength from Jesus. People are going to be that way with you, but it's okay. Keep being you. Keep being David. Keep that faith and that strength, and know that God is on your side. And eventually they're going to pay. They're going to answer for the things they say, the things they do, their lack of support of you as their brother, as their friend, as their family. They criticize you. They attack you. They throw accusations at you. And eventually they're going to pay for their actions. They're going to pay for their behavior, their words, their lack of faith. When you're rewarded, not everybody's going to be behind you, because unless you're miserable with them, they're not happy. When you have that boldness of Christ to walk in and face your battles and win it, other people aren't always going to be behind you, but there's going to be some that are. Those are the ones you want to gather in, you want to keep close to you. Go back and read the story of David and Goliath. Go back and really dig into it and look at everything that's in there. And I think you're going to see how much it can apply to your spiritual life, and how much you can learn, how much you can take in and be bold and have the strength and the faith in God that you need to face your everyday life. Read the story of David and Goliath again, and take that time to read it. And I promise you, you're going to get so much out of it that you've probably never seen before, that it's going to be a blessing to you, and it's going to strengthen you, and it's going to encourage you. It's not just a children's story. Yes, we know about it our whole life, but I'm telling you, I'm turning 37 this weekend, and I'm still gathering something out of it. I'm still getting something out. I'm learning every day more and more of what's in the scripture and what's in particular in that story. So do that. Read that story. Do yourself that favor. And I think you're going to get a blessing out of it. And I got to go in there, and I got to say one thing. I was kind of having this conversation with one of the men at the church the other day. And as we had the conversation, he mentioned that, they had offered, the king had offered, his daughter, and, whoever defeated the giant would get his daughter and this wealth and this and that. And, he said, the bad part is he was offering all of this, but none of this army would go forward. And he's getting a bride and all that. He said, his daughters must have been really ugly. Now, I know that's not scripture, but we'll just leave it with that. I appreciate y'all watching. Love y'all. Have a good one.